where all the tension, suspense, and character development converge. The antagonist, having tracked the girl and her guardian, is prepared to reclaim what they believe is theirs, underestimating the girl's growth and the guardian's strategic acumen. This confrontation is not only a battle of strength or cunning, but also a moral showdown, emphasizing themes of freedom, justice, and the triumph of courage over exploitation. The narrative opens with high tension. The antagonist approaches with carefully calculated force, perhaps, sending a group of armed men or attempting a direct challenge to the estate or location where the girl and guardian are situated. The environment amplifies the suspense. Narrow corridors, forests, or other terrain create obstacles and opportunities, highlighting the tactical decisions both sides must make. Readers immediately sense the stakes. Failure could mean capture, harm, or a loss of freedom that the girl has fought to secure all her life. Every decision made by the characters carries weight, creating an intense, emotionally charged atmosphere. The girl's evolution is central to this confrontation. No longer a passive figure, she actively participates in planning and executing strategies to protect herself and her guardian. Drawing on years of training, observation, and the lessons instilled by her mentor, she takes decisive actions that demonstrate her courage, intelligence, and independence. Her actions are both practical evading traps, signaling allies, or using environmental advantages, and symbolic, showcasing her moral strength. She no longer relies solely on her guardian. She has become a capable force in her own right, embodying the story's theme that freedom requires both wisdom and action. The guardian continues to play a vital role, providing guidance, protection, and tactical support. However, the focus gradually shifts to the girl as the central agent of change. Through her participation, readers witness the culmination of her coming-of-age journey. She confronts fear directly, makes split-second decisions, and asserts her autonomy while maintaining the moral principles she has internalized. The confrontation tests not only physical endurance but also ethical judgment, highlighting the contrast between the ruthless exploitation of the antagonist and the principled courage of the girl and her guardian. The antagonist's character is fully revealed during this climax. Their desperation, arrogance, and moral corruption are on display, emphasizing the consequences of viewing human lives as property. Every attempt they make to intimidate, manipulate, or overpower the protagonists is met with skillful resistance, showcasing the triumph of morality, preparation, and human connection over cruelty and selfishness. This moral victory is as important as the physical one, reinforcing the narrative's central themes. As the conflict reaches its peak, tension is balanced with emotional resonance. The girl experiences fear, anger, and determination in equal measure, while the guardian demonstrates steadfast commitment to her safety. Moments of close danger, tactical maneuvers, and clever subversions keep the reader engaged and heighten the impact of the resolution. The confrontation is not gratuitous. Every event contributes to character development, thematic depth, and narrative payoff. The resolution sees the antagonist defeated, forced to retreat, or neutralized in a way that aligns with the story's ethical framework. The girl's freedom, hard-won and actively defended, is secured. The climax reinforces that liberation is not passive, it requires courage, wisdom, and moral clarity. Both the girl and the guardian emerge transformed. The girl as a capable, empowered individual ready to shape her destiny, and the guardian as a figure who successfully nurtured autonomy without domination. Readers experience a satisfying convergence of suspense, moral triumph, and emotional growth. The final confrontation cements the story's central messages. Freedom must be actively protected. Courage and morality can overcome exploitation, and the bonds of trust and guidance are vital in navigating a world fraught with danger. The girl is no longer a passive victim but a symbol of resilience, empowerment, and justice, poised to face the world on her own terms. With the antagonist defeated and the immediate danger behind them, this section focuses on the aftermath of the climactic confrontation, exploring how the girl, now fully grown and empowered, claims her autonomy and begins to define her place in the world. It emphasizes the story's core themes: freedom, moral responsibility, resilience, and the enduring impact of protection and guidance. The narrative opens with a reflective tone. The girl stands as a young adult who has endured trauma, learned crucial life lessons, and actively participated in defending her freedom. Her experiences, the auction, the protection, the journey, and the final confrontation have shaped her into someone capable of both independent thought and compassionate action. She is no longer defined by her victimhood. Instead, she embodies resilience, courage, and moral clarity. This transformation signals the culmination of her character arc, demonstrating that empowerment is a product of nurture, experience, and deliberate action. Her relationship with her guardian, while evolved, remains central. The bond they share has deepened through shared trials, guidance, and mutual respect. The guardian, having successfully prepared her for independence, now allows her to take the lead in defining her future. Their connection exemplifies the story's exploration of mentorship, protection, and ethical guidance. Freedom is not merely about escaping danger, but about being equipped to live a meaningful and self-directed life. Emotional closure is achieved through this relationship, highlighting the enduring impact of care, trust, and moral example. The girl's sense of agency is emphasized through concrete choices she makes about her life and the lives of others. Perhaps she chooses to help children who face similar exploitation, dedicates herself to advocacy, or creates a safe haven for the vulnerable. These actions extend the story's moral lessons into tangible outcomes. Freedom is not only a personal right but a responsibility to act for justice in the broader world. Through her decisions, readers witness the long-term effects of courage, guidance, and ethical resilience. The narrative conveys that empowerment is active, not passive, and that individuals can use their experiences to create positive change for others. The setting reinforces this new chapter of autonomy. The estate or safe haven, once a place of protection, now becomes a base for her initiatives, symbolizing stability, empowerment, and hope. It is not merely a shelter, but a place from which she can project influence and effect change. The story may depict interactions with allies or new characters who benefit from her guidance, illustrating the ripple effect of moral courage and protective care. This conveys a powerful message. True freedom multiplies when it is used to lift others, not just oneself. Reflective moments punctuate the narrative, allowing the girl to process her journey. She contemplates her early vulnerability, the choices that preserved her life, and the challenges she has overcome. These reflections provide emotional depth and closure, reinforcing the story's themes of survival, resilience, and ethical growth. Readers gain insight into the profound psychological transformation she has undergone from a helpless infant to a young adult who understands the value of freedom and the importance of defending it. The story concludes with a sense of hope and continuity. The girl's future is open-ended yet optimistic. She is empowered, capable, and morally grounded. The antagonist's defeat ensures immediate safety, but more importantly, her experiences have equipped her to navigate future challenges with wisdom, courage, and empathy. This resolution reinforces that freedom is not a static condition, but an ongoing process of action, moral vigilance, and personal growth. Ultimately, ties together the narrative's threads: the cruelty of the auction, the protective guidance of her guardian, the dangers of pursuit, and the girl's coming-of-age journey. The story leaves readers with a sense of triumph, moral satisfaction, and emotional resonance. emphasizing that liberation, both personal and ethical, is a legacy to be preserved and shared. The girl emerges as a symbol of hope, resilience, and the enduring power of freedom earned, defended, and used responsibly. The story opens in a scene of chilling despair and human cruelty, an auction house where human lives are treated as commodities. The air is thick with dust, smoke, and the stench of fear. The crowd is a mix of wealthy buyers, opportunists, and cruel spectators, all waiting for the next item to be sold. In the center of the room lies a newborn, barely hours old, still bloodied from her birth. Her cries pierce the room, innocent yet desperate, a stark reminder of her vulnerability. Her tiny hands flail, and her fragile body is far too delicate to withstand the rough hands of those who see her not as a human being, but as an object with a price tag. The auctioneer's voice cuts through the chaos, sharp and transactional, listing the girl's attributes with clinical detachment. Every word underscores the horror of the situation. She is described by her potential, her family background, and the wealth she could bring to whoever claims her. The dehumanization is complete. The newborn's humanity is invisible to most of the crowd. Yet, the narrative doesn't dwell on the cruelty for shock alone, it establishes a critical tension, the stark contrast between innocence and exploitation. Through vivid imagery and tense pacing, the audience immediately grasps the stakes and understands why intervention is urgent. Into this oppressive scene steps the story's pivotal figure, the man who will shape the girl's destiny. Unlike the others, he is not here for profit or control. His demeanor is calm but commanding, a quiet force amid the chaotic greed surrounding him. His presence disrupts the transaction, drawing attention and curiosity. He places a bid that far exceeds the expected price, immediately silencing murmurs in the room. The crowd is shocked. No one had anticipated a person buying not for ownership, but for freedom. His action introduces the theme of moral courage, a stark contrast to the mercenary instincts of those around him. He does not buy the girl to control her body or her future. He buys her freedom, a radical act in a world where such acts are rare. Through his perspective, readers learn about the man's inner principles. He despises the notion of human beings as property, and his moral compass drives him to act decisively in the moment. This choice also establishes him as a protector figure, a key element for the story's emotional core. He is not a distant savior. He becomes intimately involved in the girl's life from the very first instant, assuming responsibility for her well-being in a world that has shown her nothing but cruelty. His decision is not merely a financial transaction. It is a defiant act of humanity against a backdrop of systemic injustice. The auction scene also sets up immediate tension and conflict for the story. While the man secures the girl's freedom, he now carries the responsibility of protecting her from the people who view her as their property or see profit in reclaiming her. There is an unspoken threat. Others in the room may resent his interference, and forces outside may seek to undo his efforts. This tension promises future challenges and a journey that will test both the girl and her protector. Additionally, the girl's early trauma is highlighted. Though she is too young to understand, her first experience of the world is one of danger, fear, and exploitation, a formative beginning that will shape her resilience and character as she grows. Scene concludes with the man gently lifting the newborn into his arms, her fragile body trembling against his chest. The contrast between the brutality of the auction and the tenderness of this act of salvation is stark, emphasizing the story's central theme, the power of freedom and the moral imperative to protect the vulnerable. This moment lays the emotional foundation for the narrative, ensuring that readers are immediately invested in both the girl's survival and the man's mission to uphold justice in a world that has forgotten it. After the harrowing auction, the story shifts to the aftermath of rescue. focusing on the man's efforts to ensure the newborn's immediate safety. He leaves the oppressive, chaotic auction house behind, carrying the fragile infant close to his chest. Each step he takes contrasts sharply with the earlier scene. The noise, greed, and cruelty are replaced by a tense, cautious quiet as he navigates the streets away from prying eyes. His primary concern is simple yet profound. She must survive, and she must remain free from those who see her as property. The city around them may appear ordinary, but for the girl, every sight and sound is a new experience, tinged with danger she cannot yet comprehend. The man brings her to his home, a secluded estate that becomes her sanctuary. The description of this space emphasizes warmth, safety, and care, a sharp juxtaposition with the cold auction house. Soft light spills into the nursery, the air is clean, and there are signs of careful preparation. A crib lined with soft blankets, nourishing food ready for the caretaker, and quiet corners where she can rest undisturbed. Every detail signals the man's commitment to her well-being, demonstrating that freedom is more than a legal transaction. It requires protection, comfort, and love. Through these descriptions, readers understand that her survival depends not only on avoiding immediate danger, but on creating an environment where she can grow, physically and emotionally secure. To help care for the girl, the man enlists a trusted nurse or caretaker. This character is vital. She is gentle, experienced, and fully committed to nurturing the infant. Her presence emphasizes that safeguarding the girl is a collective responsibility, not just the burden of one man. The nurse's interactions with the newborn are tender and intimate, soothing her cries, feeding her carefully, and speaking words of reassurance even when she is too young to understand. These small, daily acts of care reinforce the narrative's central theme. True freedom is inseparable from dignity, safety, and love. Despite this temporary haven, the story introduces the underlying tension that will drive much of the plot. The outside world remains dangerous. The man knows that there are individuals or organizations who will seek to reclaim or harm the girl, and vigilance is necessary at all times. Windows are locked, gates are secured, and he maintains a watchful presence, aware that any lapse could result in tragedy. The narrative uses subtle foreshadowing. Here, shadowy figures glimpsed from afar, letters or rumors suggesting that the auction was not an isolated incident, and the ever-present anxiety that the girl's past may catch up with her. This builds suspense, ensuring that readers remain engaged with the story's unfolding danger. As the girl begins her first days in safety, her vulnerability is emphasized. She is still newborn, entirely dependent on others for survival. Yet even in these early moments, the story plants seeds of resilience. Her cries signal vitality, her small movements suggest determination, and her very survival against such odds hints at a latent strength that will define her character later. The man observes her with a mixture of awe and responsibility, fully aware that the choices he makes now, how he protects her, who he allows near her, and the environment he creates will shape the trajectory of her life. Finally, Part 2 establishes the emotional core of the story, the bond between protector and child. Unlike the auction house, where she was treated as property, here she is valued as a human being. The man's actions are deliberate, compassionate, and morally driven. His purchase was for freedom, not control, and every action he takes reinforces this principle. By the end of this section, readers feel a sense of cautious relief. The newborn is alive, safe, and cared for, but the story's tension remains, reminding us that her freedom is fragile, and the journey to true safety has only just begun. With the girl's understanding of her past firmly established, the story shifts focus to external conflict, introducing the antagonist, the figure or organization responsible for her initial auction and the broader exploitation network. This part serves to heighten tension, showing that her freedom, though carefully protected, is fragile and constantly under threat. The villain's introduction is gradual but chilling, emphasizing cunning, power, and moral corruption rather than simple brute force. Readers begin to realize that the dangers she faces extend far beyond her early trauma. There are individuals actively seeking to control or harm her. Even now, the antagonist can take multiple forms: a ruthless businessman who profits from human trafficking, a former buyer obsessed with reclaiming her, or a shadowy network that orchestrates auctions of vulnerable children. The story portrays them as calculating and relentless, contrasting sharply with the compassion and moral integrity of her guardian. Through subtle foreshadowing, perhaps a mysterious letter, a shadowy figure near the estate, or whispered rumors in town, the narrative conveys the growing threat without immediately resorting to overt confrontation. This slow build-up amplifies suspense and keeps readers on edge, understanding that danger can strike at any moment. Villain's emergence also serves as a narrative mirror to the girl's own growth. Whereas she has begun to learn about justice, empathy, and resilience, the antagonist embodies exploitation, greed, and cruelty. Their presence in the story provides not only external tension but also moral contrast, reinforcing the central theme: freedom and humanity are worth protecting, even when confronted by relentless evil. The story may offer glimpses into the antagonist's mindset, showing how they justify their actions or view human lives as expendable. This adds depth to the conflict, making it more than a simple good versus evil scenario, and providing motivation for the protagonist's protective efforts. Tension escalates as the antagonist takes subtle actions to reclaim or track the girl. Perhaps they send intermediaries to gather information about her whereabouts, or they manipulate legal or social systems to challenge her freedom. These moves force the guardian to anticipate threats, heightening the narrative stakes. Every precaution the man takes, hiring protectors, securing the estate, monitoring communications, demonstrates his awareness of the antagonist's cunning and the lengths to which he must go to safeguard her. This cat-and-mouse dynamic lays the groundwork for future confrontations and provides an ongoing source of suspense. The girl herself begins to sense that all is not as safe as it seems. While she has grown confident and capable, moments of unease remind her and the readers that the past cannot be fully escaped. This awareness begins to shape her character in crucial ways. She learns vigilance, discernment, and the importance of trusting her instincts. It also encourages early sparks of initiative and courage, foreshadowing the active role she will later play in defending herself and others. Her growing awareness and intelligence set her apart from the ordinary victim, emphasizing that survival in a dangerous world requires more than physical safety. It requires mental and emotional resilience. Part 5 concludes with a sense of imminent threat, establishing both suspense and narrative momentum. The antagonist's presence is now undeniable, their objectives clear, and the story signals that the coming chapters will involve confrontation, strategy, and potentially perilous action. Readers are left with a heightened sense of tension, invested in the girl's journey and the guardian's efforts to protect her. By juxtaposing the villain's ruthlessness with the guardian's compassion and the girl's emerging courage, the story deepens its emotional resonance, demonstrating that the stakes are not only life and death, but also the preservation of humanity, freedom, and moral integrity. This section sets the stage for future conflicts, positioning the antagonist as a persistent threat whose presence shapes every decision the protagonist and the girl make. It ensures that the narrative is no longer just about survival, but also about courage, justice, and the moral battles that define both the protector and the protected. The story reaches a pivotal point as the antagonist, having established their intent and resources, moves from shadowy maneuvering to direct confrontation. This first encounter is tense, fraught with danger, and serves as both a narrative and emotional turning point. The girl, now older and more aware of the world around her, witnesses the real threat her guardian has been shielding her from. This confrontation underscores the fragility of safety, the complexity of human morality, and the courage required to defend freedom against those who seek to destroy it. The antagonist approaches with cunning, rather than brute force, revealing their intelligence and strategic planning. Perhaps they send a group of hired men to infiltrate the estate or confront the guardian under the guise of negotiation. The story emphasizes tension and suspense. Readers can feel the invisible threat of danger, knowing that any misstep could have devastating consequences. The guardian, anticipating this confrontation, remains calm but vigilant, demonstrating his experience and commitment. His role as protector is highlighted here. He must balance immediate defense with long-term safety, ensuring the girl is shielded not only physically but emotionally from the trauma of violence. The girl witnesses the bravery and quick thinking of her guardian, for the first time in a truly perilous situation. This is a formative experience, reinforcing her understanding of morality, courage, and the difference between power used for protection versus power used for exploitation. She observes how he negotiates, defends, and strategizes without losing his ethical grounding. Through this, she begins to internalize principles of resilience and justice that will later define her own character. Her emotional response is complex: fear, admiration, and a burgeoning sense of responsibility intermingle, laying the foundation for her transition from protected child to active participant in her own life and safety. The confrontation also serves as a mechanism for revealing the antagonist's character in depth. Their ruthlessness, manipulation, and willingness to exploit fear are made evident. Perhaps they attempt to intimidate the guardian with threats, test his moral limits, or try to lure the girl into danger. By displaying these traits, the narrative reinforces the stakes and creates a clear moral contrast between the antagonist and the guardian. Readers understand that this conflict is not merely physical but ethical. The antagonist seeks control and exploitation, while the guardian fights for dignity, freedom, and humanity. Conflict escalates quickly but strategically. The guardian may fend off the initial assault, protect the girl from harm, and force the antagonist to retreat temporarily. Yet the tension remains unresolved as the threat of return looms over every subsequent action. This unresolved suspense maintains narrative momentum and emphasizes the ongoing danger that shadows their lives. The girl's growing awareness of threat and her observations of her guardian's actions serve as critical lessons in courage, judgment, and tactical thinking. These lessons are essential for her eventual evolution into a capable, self-reliant young adult. Additionally, the first confrontation cements the emotional bond between the girl and her guardian. She realizes, viscerally, the depth of his commitment not just in words, but through decisive action that risks his own safety for hers. This shared ordeal strengthens trust, mutual respect, and emotional intimacy in their non-romantic but deeply familial relationship. It also reinforces one of the story's central themes: freedom cannot be passive. It requires vigilance, courage, and ethical action to protect it. Readers experience a mix of relief and lingering tension. The antagonist has been temporarily repelled, but the danger persists. The girl has gained insight into the realities of her world, while the guardian's role as protector and moral guide is solidified. The confrontation establishes a clear pattern for future conflict, escalating threats, strategic battles, and ethical dilemmas that test courage and character. This chapter lays the groundwork for the girl's transformation from a passive recipient of protection to an empowered individual, capable of confronting danger and injustice herself. As the story progresses, we fast forward several years to see the girl growing up under the careful protection of the man who saved her. The narrative shifts from immediate danger to the complexities of childhood under guardianship, exploring themes of trust, curiosity, and resilience. The girl, now several years old, is intelligent, perceptive, and unusually aware of her surroundings for her age. Though she has never experienced the brutality of the auction firsthand, fragments of that early trauma linger in her subconscious, shaping a cautious, sometimes wary perspective on the world. Her guardian strives to shield her from these realities, but he knows that total protection is impossible. Life, he understands, will test her in ways neither of them can fully predict. The estate where she grows up is a sanctuary, a place of stability and safety. Large gardens, quiet corridors, and cozy rooms filled with books, toys, and learning materials create an environment where the girl can flourish. Yet the story carefully balances comfort with tension. The world outside the estate's walls is unpredictable and dangerous, and occasional glimpses of strangers or rumors about the auction industry remind readers that the threat is never fully gone. This subtle tension ensures that the story remains suspenseful while allowing the girl to develop her character in a nurturing setting. Her relationship with her guardian deepens during these formative years. He is not just a protector, but a teacher, imparting lessons about morality, courage, and justice. He instills in her a sense of right and wrong, teaching that true freedom is not simply the absence of physical restraint, but the ability to make choices and live with dignity. These lessons are imparted gently, through stories, small challenges, and daily interactions. The girl learns empathy, critical thinking, and the importance of standing up against cruelty, even in situations where she herself feels powerless. This careful nurturing highlights a central theme: the power of education and guidance in shaping not just survival, but character. The girl's personality also begins to shine. She is curious, asking endless questions about the world, the people she sees from a distance, and her own origins. She is playful yet introspective, often retreating into her imagination to process emotions too complex for her young mind. Her intelligence and resourcefulness become evident in small acts, solving minor problems around the estate, helping the nurse with chores, or anticipating her guardian's needs. These early hints of ingenuity foreshadow the resilience and strength she will later demonstrate in the face of greater threats. Even in this seemingly secure environment, danger looms. The story introduces subtle signs of potential pursuit: letters, distant figures, or whispered rumors that someone is still seeking to reclaim her. These elements are never overtly threatening at first, but they establish an undercurrent of suspense, reminding readers that the girl's freedom is fragile. Her guardian remains vigilant, balancing the need to allow her independence with the necessity of protection. The tension between freedom and safety becomes a recurring motif, shaping both their relationship and the girl's understanding of the world. By the end of this part, readers witness the girl's transformation from a fragile infant into a capable, observant child under the careful guidance of a man who values her freedom above all else. Her early experiences, though sheltered from direct harm, have instilled in her a sense of gratitude, morality, and curiosity. These traits will become essential in the challenges she faces later, reinforcing the narrative's central message. While cruelty and danger exist in the world, courage, compassion, and wisdom can provide a foundation for survival and eventual empowerment. As the girl grows, she begins to notice gaps in her understanding of her past. Though her childhood has been sheltered, the mysteries surrounding her early life are impossible to ignore. One day, while exploring her guardian's study or attic, she stumbles upon old documents, letters, or journals that reveal the horrifying truth: she was once auctioned off as a newborn, sold as though her very life could be bought and owned. The discovery hits her with the force of shock and disbelief. Her initial reaction is a complex mix of fear, anger, and confusion. For the first time, she realizes the gravity of the world she was born into and the cruelty from which she was saved. This revelation introduces a profound internal conflict. On one hand, she feels immense gratitude toward her guardian, who rescued her from a life of exploitation and provided her with love, safety, and freedom. On the other hand, the knowledge of her past ignites feelings of anger not toward him, but toward the system, the auctioneers, and those who view human lives as commodities. This duality of emotion is central to her character development. She begins to understand that freedom is not just a physical state but a moral one, and that living free requires courage, awareness, and the willingness to confront injustice. The narrative explores her struggle to reconcile these conflicting emotions. She grapples with questions such as, how could anyone treat a newborn like an object? Why did her early life start in such horror? And most importantly, what does her past mean for her future? These questions drive her introspection and shape her emerging worldview. Through her reflections, readers gain insight into her intelligence, empathy, and emerging sense of justice. The story emphasizes that trauma, while harrowing, can also become a source of strength, forging resilience and a moral compass in the young. Her discovery also alters her relationship with her guardian. While he has always been a source of stability and protection, she now sees him not just as a savior but as a moral guide and role model. Conversations between them become more profound, exploring topics like ethics, responsibility, and the importance of defending those who cannot defend themselves. The guardian's guidance helps her process her anger and fear, turning potential bitterness into determination. He does not shelter her from the truth. Instead, he helps her navigate it, teaching that understanding the past is essential for shaping the future. The story also introduces early hints of external conflict. Through her reading of old documents, she uncovers that the auction may have been part of a larger network of exploitation. This realization introduces suspense. While she is currently safe, the people or organizations responsible for her initial suffering may still pose a threat. The seeds of this looming danger create narrative tension, keeping readers engaged and signaling that her journey toward true empowerment is just beginning. By the end of Part 4, the girl is no longer an innocent child unaware of the world's cruelties. She has confronted a dark truth, grappled with powerful emotions, and begun to shape her understanding of justice, freedom, and responsibility. This turning point sets the stage for her eventual empowerment and establishes a central theme of the story. True freedom is both a right and a responsibility, and knowledge, though painful, can be a catalyst for courage and action. This part also deepens the emotional stakes. The girl's past, combined with her present safety, highlights the precarious balance between vulnerability and resilience. Readers feel her fear and empathy, her growing determination, and her bond with the guardian who nurtures her understanding. The stage is now set for her to face not just personal challenges, but the larger forces that threaten freedom and justice in the world around her. Following the first confrontation, the threat posed by the antagonist becomes undeniable. Their relentless pursuit leaves the guardian with no choice but to remove the girl from the relative safety of their estate. The story shifts from static tension to active motion as the pair embark on a perilous journey to preserve her freedom. This part of the narrative emphasizes suspense, adventure, and the deepening bond between guardian and child, while also showcasing the girl's growing awareness and resilience. The journey begins with careful planning. The guardian knows that rushing blindly would be dangerous, so he devises a route that avoids known patrols, prying eyes, and other potential hazards. Every step is measured, highlighting his experience and strategic thinking. The girl, though initially frightened, observes these preparations closely. She begins to understand the importance of foresight, caution, and quick thinking in a world where danger is ever present. These lessons are subtle but significant, laying the foundation for her eventual independence and self-reliance. As they move through forests, open plains, or small villages, the story interweaves moments of tension and reprieve. The landscape itself becomes a character. Thick woods offer cover but conceal unknown threats. Rivers present both obstacles and sources of sustenance, and lonely roads remind them of their isolation. These settings are described vividly, emphasizing the uncertainty of their situation while reinforcing the stakes. The narrative builds suspense by showing glimpses of danger in the form of distant figures, unexpected sounds, or unsettling encounters with strangers who may or may not be allies. Each moment strengthens the reader's sense that freedom is precarious and must be actively defended. Along the journey, the girl begins to take a more active role. Simple tasks like gathering supplies, reading maps, or assisting in navigating terrain become opportunities to demonstrate intelligence, initiative, and courage. These actions are small but critical milestones in her character development. She learns firsthand that survival requires both mental agility and emotional strength, and she starts to internalize the lessons her guardian has been teaching her for years. Her growing competence fosters confidence and a sense of agency, marking the first steps in her transformation from a protected child to a proactive participant in her own destiny. The guardian's role during this journey is multifaceted. He continues to protect and guide the girl, but he also begins to test her readiness for real-world challenges. He provides subtle instruction, encourages problem-solving, and allows her to make minor decisions under supervision. This mentorship reinforces the story's central theme. True freedom involves not just physical safety, but also moral understanding, responsibility, and the ability to act wisely in difficult circumstances. Their shared experiences on the journey deepen the emotional bond between them, forging trust, mutual respect, and a sense of shared purpose that will be essential in the trials ahead. Throughout the escape, the antagonist remains an unseen but palpable presence. Every choice the pair makes is influenced by the looming threat of pursuit, adding a layer of tension and urgency to the narrative. The journey is not just a physical challenge but a psychological one. It tests patience, judgment, and resilience. Readers are drawn into the suspense, eager to see if the pair will evade capture and how the girl will grow from these experiences. The guardian and girl have traversed treacherous terrain, evaded immediate danger, and forged a deeper connection. The girl has learned practical skills, tested her courage, and gained a stronger understanding of the world beyond the safety of the estate. This section establishes a narrative rhythm of action, danger, and emotional growth that will carry into the coming chapters. The journey reinforces the story's core message. Freedom must be actively pursued, courage must be cultivated, and the bonds of trust and protection are essential to navigating a world that can be both beautiful and perilous. As the story progresses, the girl reaches a crucial stage in her life, adolescence, where she begins to mature physically, emotionally, and mentally. Part 8, Coming of Age, explores her transformation from a protected child into a capable, self-reliant young adult, emphasizing the skills, resilience, and moral understanding she has developed under the guidance of her guardian. This phase is pivotal, as it establishes her readiness to face the world's dangers more actively rather than passively relying on protection. Living under the watchful eyes of her guardian, she has grown intelligent, observant, and perceptive. She has internalized lessons about morality, justice, and empathy, shaped by both the nurturing environment of the estate and the experiences of the journey. The narrative highlights her ability to analyze situations, anticipate risks, and make decisions with courage and integrity. She is no longer merely a recipient of guidance but an active participant in her own life, capable of understanding the complexities of human behavior and responding to challenges with thoughtfulness and bravery. Physical training, practical skills, and mental exercises become integral to her coming-of-age process. She learns self-defense, basic survival tactics, and strategies for avoiding danger, all tailored to ensure she can protect herself in a world that has shown cruelty from birth. These skills are not presented as mere preparation for combat. They are a manifestation of her growing independence, her awareness of the importance of freedom, and her ability to act decisively when necessary. Her growing competence reinforces one of the story's central themes. Freedom is inseparable from responsibility and preparedness. Her relationship with her guardian evolves during this stage. While he remains a protector and mentor, he begins to treat her as a partner in navigating the challenges they face. He tests her judgment, encourages her to take calculated risks, and allows her to contribute meaningfully to planning and decision-making. This evolving dynamic strengthens their bond and provides the girl with confidence in her abilities. She begins to see herself as a capable individual, not defined solely by her past trauma or her status as someone who needed protection, but as someone who can act with agency, courage, and intelligence. Part 8 also introduces the girl's growing awareness of the antagonist's ongoing threat. The dangers that shadowed her childhood are no longer abstract. They are concrete challenges she must confront, at least partially, on her own. The narrative uses subtle foreshadowing, reports of suspicious activity, mysterious figures appearing near safe locations, or intelligence gathered through her own observations. These elements reinforce suspense and provide a realistic framework for her emerging autonomy. They highlight that true maturity involves facing uncertainty, making difficult choices, and navigating morally complex situations, skills that cannot be learned passively. Emotionally, the girl begins to process her past trauma with greater clarity. She reflects on the auction, her early vulnerability, and the sacrifices her guardian made to protect her. These reflections deepen her empathy, resilience, and sense of justice. She starts to understand that her own experiences can inform and guide her actions toward others who are vulnerable, foreshadowing her eventual role as a defender of freedom and morality in the broader world. The girl has fully entered the threshold of young adulthood. She is strong, intelligent, and morally grounded, prepared to face both internal and external challenges. The guardian, recognizing her growth, begins to step back slightly, allowing her to take more initiative while remaining a source of guidance. This section cements the story's message that empowerment comes from a combination of protection, education, experience, and the development of personal agency. The stage is now set for her to actively confront the antagonist, defend her freedom, and assert her own role in shaping her destiny.